Hello and welcome to the Humane Cities podcast. I'm your host, Alex Williams, and today I'm joined by our very first guest, Biz. How are you doing, Biz?
Doing well. I'm excited to be back doing this with you. It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm excited. I like podcasting with you. You've joined me on Council Island before, which is where we do some coverage of locally here in Calgary, our city council. It's a bit of a reality TV show is kind of the vibe that it gives. So Council Island is the coverage podcast that we do gossiping about what's going on at City Hall. But here we're going to be exploring, and as this is our first episode, I might give a little bit of a vision to people for what they can expect from this show. We're going to be exploring different cities, a variety of cities, and trying to hear from different advocates what their city is like, what the advocacy in their city is like, how it's maybe unique or maybe not so unique compared to other places. And so if right off the bat, if you are a city advocate in housing, transit, cycling, whatever it is, I'd like to hear from you. You can recommend yourself as a guest. I'll put contact information in the show notes and in the description, and you can reach out to us. But Biz, I chose you as the first guest because I know you're always up for doing something creative and something interesting. So do you mind giving us a little bit of an origin story of how you got into municipal advocacy? Yeah, we'll start there and then see where we go.
For sure. I think I've always been a very sort of politically minded person and just kind of up on all the fun elections and things that are going on. Like as early as 2015, which for me was like middle school. There were a lot of elections, and then US 2016 and things. And so I was always just kind of thinking about like ideology and policy and different things like this. But I think it was around 2021 or so that I started thinking at more of the local scale. What can I do in my neighborhood? These big, giant things that you see in the media that take up a lot of attention tend to not have that much of an impact on your day-to-day experience in your city. And so I was involved in the municipal election that year, and I was just realizing how alienated I was by a lot of the discourse online. Just like engaging with issues on like a theoretical level that had almost no impact on my actual life, and just got sick of being so frustrated by that all day, and decided that I wanted to find some people who live in my city that I can connect with and see what they're interested in and what are some of the ways that I can make the immediate surroundings better. And so I had found kind of in quick succession Strong Towns Calgary and More Neighbors Calgary, just kind of during that period in the summer when in 2023 when City Council had rejected the housing strategy, which if anybody remembers being in Calgary around that time was like the issue. Like housing affordability had like rents had close to doubled in like the last couple of years just because of how quickly people were moving into the city. And so it was such like a lightning rod moment to bring people together like for me, I was already really interested in housing policy and seeing the different ways that, something like exclusionary zoning can totally change the way that a city can operate. And so I was so blindsided by the fact that they were going to shut down the entire conversation. And so really, and also just seeing how much misinformation was in the public eye, or just lack of information, really. Like and it's still such a problem, is there's very, very little media and discourse and discussion around municipal issues that the playing field gets so filled with fear and speculation and presumption. And so that was kind of my calling, I guess, was to use my skill as a communicator and media producer to try to bring more energy into that space and try to present a positive vision for what the city could become that challenges some of the fears and misconceptions without necessarily arguing against them or attacking them directly, but just trying to cultivate this positive perception of the city that I think a lot of people don't share.
Yeah, and I really appreciate how you pointed out how affected we all are by what's happening in our cities, right? I use the sidewalk every day. I flush the toilet every day, right? Those are municipal things and municipal concerns. And so who's running our city and how our city is run is pretty core to how we live our lives, and it often gets overlooked. You're also part of my origin story, getting involved and engaged in these things. I've been interested in cities as long as I can remember. I've always thought about the way we build our cities and how we do it. I remember as a kid, this is one of my earliest thoughts, was looking at the big patches of grass in between the circles, the clover leaves of an interchange, and thinking, wow, what a lot of wasted space. And my solution to that as a child was like, we should build something there. Like, why don't we put like offices there, and you can like drive off of the ramp right into your office's parquet. That was like my childhood 5-6-year-old solution. Now I've realized the solution is probably just have less cars as the solution. But I did, I did kind of have that very early on, that thought of how we use our cities and how we use the space in our cities. And then the way that I wound up speaking at City Council for the first time, which was kind of the first go round of RCG. For some context for people who aren't in Calgary, Biz mentioned the housing strategy that came out that council rejected, and then council decided to bring back and take another look at it. And then that was a 3-day public hearing, which was the first public hearing I ever watched. I watched the whole thing, and that was actually my first time seeing Biz. I didn't know Biz at the time, but you spoke at that hearing. And then I got interested in the zoning and RCG, and I made a video on my YouTube channel about it. And then I think you commented on that video, or maybe on a different video or Instagram or something, but you encouraged me to get involved with More Neighbors Calgary, which is a housing advocacy group here. And then I wound up getting very involved with More Neighbors Calgary and very involved in municipal advocacy. And so you've been a significant part of my getting involved. And now, a few years ago, we created Unsprawling. And it was kind of, like when we were first talking about it, and it was you and I talking about it, and a few other people who were kind of part of that conversation of what do we want this to be. And it was very much, like you mentioned, about communication and video production, and how do we share this information with people in an interesting way. And that's been very much your project, and it's been growing a lot. So can you tell us a little bit about what Unsprawling is, and where you've taken it from, and where it is now, and where you hope to take it to?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it a little bit without sort of explicitly saying so, but in the timeline, like as in that campaign of getting closer to the big, giant, like 3-week-long public hearing about changing the base zone in Calgary, the citywide rezoning, I think we really identified a gap in the local sort of political communications framework, where you have these huge institutional giants, like the Calgary Herald, or I don't know, it's like CBC Calgary or whatever, who are totally wiped off of social media at this point. And there's really nobody filling that space trying to bring information to people. And even the institutional giants, it's like they really, really struggle to dig deep into a local issue, because the audience for it is just so small that yeah, there we go. Now we're back at the beginning. You can see it's like a full month. It's like a full month of Alex just posting every day about how much he loves row houses.
Yeah, that was leading up to that first hearing. I did a bunch of posting of that. If people are watching the video, you can see. Yeah. It's basically me, and then one video of Biz, and then a bunch of public hearing videos of some amazing speakers, and then you can kind of see the transition that Unsprawling makes. And if you watch some of the more recent videos, I mean, Biz, you just do an excellent job.
Thank you.
Of editing them and putting them together and producing those. But I'll stop sharing so that we're not distracted, and I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the vision for Unsprawling is really, how can we bring together the community in Calgary, because another gap I saw is that we have all these different advocacy organizations. We have More Neighbors Calgary, we have Strong Towns Calgary, we got the Climate Hub, we got Bike Calgary, we got just all of these little organizations that are doing their own thing. And that's really, really, really good for, I would say, advocacy. But it's not so good for organization or public relations. And this is kind of one of the things I think that makes Calgary really unique, is that I do think that this is a pretty integral part of our political culture, is that there is kind of a small town atmosphere to the politics still, where like you can just go email your counselor, you can demand to have a meeting with them, and you might just have that happen, right? Especially if you have a little bit of institutional clout behind you, like say you're a volunteer at some organization whose opinion they care a lot about. Even if that organization is not moving that many voters, there's still kind of this person has some understanding of the issue, and so I'm going to listen to them. There's a lot of that direct advocacy that happens, where the focus is how do we get the right data and craft the right message to give to the decision maker. But there's a lot less of how do we craft the right message and distribute it to all Calgarians? How do we bring the Calgarians who don't even understand who don't even know what a counselor is, let alone know who their name is? How do we get those people engaged and have them understand the message of what this city could look like and what it would take to get there? And I think it's the popular Calgarians love to be cynical. I think the vast majority of Calgarians understand what the problems are in our city. Maybe they don't know exactly how to describe them, but I would say a lot of those people have absolutely no faith that it's possible to fix. They think that it's totally like an essential characteristic of our city, that we're just going to forever be the way that we are, in a way that makes it difficult to move around in any way that isn't a car, in a way that's like spread out and really difficult to collect enough taxes to pay for the services that we have, that we're just going to have to deal with these things, or that it's just politicians' fault for not managing the government well enough when things do fail. And I think that creates an opportunity for us to get out there, that we have the privilege to understand urban geography, and we're such nerds, and we love reading the documents, and we love going outside and walking around with our friends and just pointing out different things in the city that we find interesting and telling stories about it. And so that was the original vision, and kind of where we've been able to take it is take all these nerds who just love Calgary so much, who have so much to say about it, and stick a camera in front of them when they're ready to tell a story about how much they love it and how it could be better. And I think you can really see that in the reception that we get, and in the comment sections and things, is there's a lot of rage bait on the internet. And I think you can really see what it looks like for us to be intentionally cultivating a positive, action-oriented community that isn't just trying to get people upset about an issue, but is trying to inform people so that they can take action to make something better.
Yeah, and get them genuinely interested. I see it in the Discord server. Sometimes people will join and say, "Oh, I saw one of your videos, and I thought that was interesting, and I care about that issue, but I didn't know much about it, and I didn't know how to do something with it. And now that I found this group, maybe I can get a little bit more engaged." I want to talk a little bit. You mentioned about how you collaborate and literally collaborate on Instagram with some of these organizations, like Bike Calgary on this most recent one. Now, this most recent video, I'm going to share the screen here. This video is so fantastic, and it's about cycling in the city, and especially on a cargo bike. And you have Stephanie asking questions, and you have Alana there as the cargo bike rider. Tell me a little bit about making this video. How do you make something like this happen, and what does it do for the community in Calgary? Like, what's the point? Yeah,
I really love this video. This might be the favorite video that we ever put out. The retention has not been as great as I thought. Like, it's kind of mostly stayed contained within the community we already have, which is fine. I think that's also really great to be able to reach out and bring the community that is already really excited and nerdy about this stuff together. And so it's great to have that balance of some content is just really good at kind of exciting the base, and some content is really good at reaching other people and bringing them in. But how this came together is Stephanie pretty much walked up to me at an event that I was at in person and just said, somebody told me that you make videos. I have this cool idea for a video. Would you like what can I do to help, basically? And we like had a couple of meetings where it's like, okay, here's how this can go. You know, I'm happy to do this work on it. And she offered to, you know, I'll kind of put together a list of contacts and I'll organize scheduling and things like that. And I'm thinking, awesome, great. And that's exactly what Unsprawling is kind of supposed to do, is be able to consistently produce video content by being able to, in kind of a non-hierarchical way, share the responsibilities of video production and be able to teach people how this stuff gets put together, with hands-on experience. And so she contacted Alana and we were able to say, okay, well, we'll meet at this time and place. And then it's really just as simple as I hopped in her cargo bike and started recording on my phone. I had these two little mics that I could put on each of them. And we just had a little conversation. And I think what it does for the community is it shows, you know, it puts a positive message of cycling out there. I think even though this is just the next sort of videos in this series, I think are going to be a little bit more pointed to a particular issue. It's going to be like, you know, what would make your experience of cycling better in the city? And then Alana's like, oh, you know, our infrastructure is really bad in these sorts of ways. So that's like the political purpose of that video is a little bit more clear. But I think even this, as kind of a mashing of a bunch of different bloopers that I mostly put together so that it would have like a really fun introduction to what this series is supposed to be about, I think it still really shows people, you know, just saying things like, I love cargo biking and I can go 50 kilometers on a single charge. Like a lot of these things are just pieces of information that your average person has no idea about, and how easy it is really. Like it's a lot more difficult to convince someone that people cycle in Calgary through like stats and numbers than just showing them, here's somebody who does it and they have a really great time and it's really awesome. And they have some struggles and whatever, but here's how they deal with that. And yeah, just showing people that their experience of our city is worth putting on a platform, I think is the main thing that I wanted to communicate with Unsprawling, is that everybody in Calgary has some kind of story and has some kind of passion and has a responsibility and a role in making our city a better place. And the role of Unsprawling is to create that platform where that voice could be harnessed into something productive.
Yeah, yeah, and I think this is really important, and so people can expect more in this "How Do You Move Calgary" series, and more's already filmed.
Yeah, we did 2 interviews in the first batch, and then I think we're going to focus on like other modes of transportation, like transit. And there's a couple people in Calgary that walk as their main mode of commuting. You know, especially if you're privileged enough to have, you know, somewhere that you work and live downtown or near downtown. It can be a really fantastic way to get around. And so I think a lot of people like you look at the population distribution of Calgary and it speaks for itself. We simply haven't built the kind of housing and economic opportunity in the places that would make it possible for you to move in different ways around the city. And so you can't really fault 80% of Calgarians for not understanding that is a way that their city is and that people can live in their city. And so, you know, when there's so much interconnection between transit and housing and mobility and safety and tactical urbanism, it's like really difficult to communicate that as different silos rather than just kind of showing people, here's the experience of the city that you're missing.
Yeah, yeah, I really like that, and I like the storytelling that you do, and you're a fantastic editor as well. You've got such a good eye for it. Everything that you put out is fantastic, and it seems like this video series is a little bit more intensely produced, but not every video on Unsprawling is that intensely produced. I'll share the screen again and show the most recent video in which I featured on Unsprawling, and that's talking about the free fare zone downtown, which may or may not be going away. We're still waiting to see that. Most of my advocacy in Calgary is around transit, but you walked up to me in front of City Hall and you said, "Hey, Alex, do you want to film a video?" And then we did this, and then you edited it and threw it up. It didn't take that much.
Just on my phone, right?
Yeah, literally just on your phone. Like, can you speak to that a little bit? And maybe there are other people in other cities who want to do something like Unsprawling in their city, but they see, oh, well, they've got to coordinate a bike and, a route and plan all of this stuff and everything else. Can you talk about how simple it can actually be?
You got it right there. I mean, it's just as simple as putting a camera up, and like everybody's got 60 seconds of knowledge in their head on any given topic. Each individual person's going to have a different 60 seconds of passion that they can give you. But that's the thing about Unsprawling, is that we're not trying to be a housing advocacy organization. We're not trying to be a transit advocacy organization. We're trying to pull these different lobes of the ecosystem together and present a well-rounded message of just a more vibrant and resilient Calgary. And we do that not by having each individual video be absolutely perfect, but by having a high volume of content where each of them is kind of doing something positive in a different way. And I think that's the name of the game on social media. It's that consistency. You need to be consistent and you need to be engaging. And that's something that I think it's really, really difficult to do. You do need like a good team of people, and you need someone who's working pretty hard in order to get this pipeline working. And you just can't get that usually with just kind of a single volunteer organization, unless it's something like with a massive amount of support behind it. Like I would say maybe like Movement YVR has like pretty good content situation that's contained within their organization. But that's because they have such a critical mass of people supporting it. And so with these bunch of different organizations, we really wanted to have kind of a center of gravity there that we can use that collaboration post feature to really bring all those different issues together and communities together. And that's, I think, the key to success early on, was using those existing communities who, people follow all of these different organizations and they might not see their posts, but they're still on the follow list. And being able to show something to them when they open, Instagram, which people are doing a ridiculous amount per day. You show them something as like a little olive branch that kind of takes them out of their doom scroll and gets them to interact with something. And if you put in maybe not the best production work and skill of all time, but if you have that positive and clear and engaging message, I think people see that and they recognize that. And early on, even though we only had maybe, a couple hundred followers or whatever, those were actively engaged followers who are seeing every single video and hopping down in the comments to tell us how grateful they are that somebody is out there saying the things that they wish they could. And then those are people that I can then DM and say, hey, what do you wish you could say? Let's do this. And so I think it was really just like everybody has that vision in their head of like what this could be. And like, you want to be producing really good content and you want to why would you do something if you're not going to do it right? But I think in the same way, I don't know, I read Strong Towns and it was like a book of philosophy for me that I really integrated into my personal life, right? You learn by doing, and you create change by lots and lots of little actions rather than trying to focus on doing one big perfect action. And so that's something I've operationalized pretty hard into this, and really trying to not make it all about me and not burning myself out by being the person who has to be in front of the camera all the time. I found it's been a lot more consistent, a lot more rewarding for me to be behind the camera and trying to influence other people to share their perspective. And there's so many people out there who are ready for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've had this conversation about, which role do you fill best and which role do you enjoy filling the best, right? Like, I can edit. There are lots of things that I do edit. For work, I edit podcasts, which is something that I enjoy more than editing videos. I'm also not as good at editing videos as you are. But you stick a camera in my face, I can yap about anything for 60 seconds. And so I really appreciate the collaboration that we have on things and the collaboration that you get with other people and the way that you pull people together. One thing I've always admired about you, Biz, is the way that you just reach out to people. The way, you were talking about this this mentality earlier on, like you can just reach out to people and be like, let's go for coffee. I want to ask you questions about this one thing. Can we grab coffee? It's not that hard. It's not that scary. And as you do it more, I think you feel more comfortable with it. Have you ever been nervous to reach out to somebody? Because you strike me as just do it type of person.
I think for sure early on, it's you can be at the bottom of the Dunning-Kruger graph, and you can know you have a little bit more confidence and understanding of the issue than maybe you realize, but you know just how much you don't know. And it can be really difficult to reach out and have that sort of trepidation and feeling like, oh man, am I going to be looking like a total idiot? Am I just going to be putting myself out there in a really vulnerable position and, kind of exposing how little I actually know about this to someone who I really admire. I think that's a sort of valuable anxiety and a feeling, and there's probably some truth to it. But, this is a very positive and happy community of folks that we don't see someone with, a lack of understanding and view that as like a way to judge or shame them, and more just like, oh, what a fun opportunity, especially like me as someone who is so passionate about communication and education. I see that as like, great, like you're someone who I have the opportunity to, bounce back and forth and try to help you understand some of these things. And in seeing what sticks and what doesn't, or what sort of things make sense, I can actually get a more rounded understanding of what is the general understanding in the public. Where are those gaps that people could understand better? I think that there is something really, really valuable about being just a common everyday person and sharing your experiences of the city. And I think, like, I remember the first time I was really frustrated about a municipal issue and I sent a letter to my counselor. It was just, how come there's not a cycle track on this like tiny little strip of my commute to work, where there's like these 10-meter wide lawns on like this tiny arterial street where it'd be so easy to just put a multi-use pathway. And so many of the people I work with who are blue collar, middle class, lower middle class, rely on either cycling or transit or things. Why is there not a sidewalk? I had to reach out. Like, I think that even that narrative, just that story and that understanding is already enough to reach out to your counselor about. But I didn't quite feel confident enough, and so I reached out to, I think it was Bike Calgary, just saying, like, here's this thing that I'm frustrated about. And it took that, like, yeah, you've got it. Like, we're frustrated about that too. And you're communicating this in a pretty cogent way, and just taking that little bit of confidence to be like, yeah, you're good to go, before I felt confident reaching out to my counselor. And I think it's really hard to feel comfortable doing that kind of just outreach and just sending a message and sending cold opens. And it doesn't always work. I've been ghosted by a few people by just sending them crazy ideas, and they're like, who the hell is this in my inbox, right? But I think once you get out in the community and you can see that the people who are organizing this stuff are just kind of normal folks with their own lives and their own passions and interests and, frailties and yada yada, I think you can really appreciate how easy it is to just shake their hand and see what's up. Especially it's helpful in Calgary. We have so many like pub nights where we gather and we shoot the shit and bounce ideas off of each other in that situation where it's really easy for somebody to just walk up and sit down next to us. And so that's a really big part of this as well, is not just relying on someone's discipline to just be able to cold open, but also we're creating lots of opportunities for people to be able to come and see us as well.
Yeah. I think it's been huge. So out of these opportunities that you've had, and maybe this is a good place to bring this conversation to a head. What has been a success story or something that you feel like you've done with Unsprawling, or maybe not even Unsprawling, but as a city advocate? What's something that you've done that you've been proud of? Either the results were something that you'd consider a win, or maybe just the process was something that you might consider a win.
I think I'm starting to feel pretty excited and optimistic about way that Unsprawling is going. I did some work for Calgary's Future over the last municipal election as well, and I was really proud of the interview series I did, where I just went to each of the candidates who we endorsed and just kind of asked them some basic questions about what are you passionate about, what are your top 3 issues, what are you interested in, and those videos didn't skyrocket. There were a few videos that we did have over the election campaign that were like, boom, like just reached a pretty big audience. But, at least reaching like a few thousand people, I think is still a really big win. And it might not move the needle too much on an election. Certainly we don't have a council that reflects that. But I think it is generating energy, and it's a little bit more each day. And I see in Unsprawling, we've recently started doing some static posts too, and those absolutely blow up. Like, it's been so successful in a way that I didn't expect it to be at all. We've grown, we started the year with about 1,000 followers, and now we're at 2.6K, and we were at 2.5K yesterday. Like, the rate of growth has been really ridiculous. And I don't think we would have been able to get that if we didn't have that 2 years of experience to figure out what works and what doesn't, and how to approach this, and really hone our approach. But what I think I'm trying to get at is that I'm starting to see, with that audience, with that 20, 30,000 people that we're reaching on a monthly basis, that's starting to have an impact. And given that we are reaching people with an intentionally positive and action-oriented message, I'm seeing discussions in the comments where people are, tagging their counselors Instagram, and then that counselor has to, they feel pressure to come into the comment section and reply and be there and, face the people. And that, I think, is the biggest win, is like, I feel like are starting to see this movement become influential in a way that's changing the behavior of our elected officials, not just on our particular decision, but in their day-to-day interactions.
Yeah. Yeah, and they know who you are as well, and I think that makes a big difference, right? Is they're paying attention. Last question for you as we wrap up: who is an advocate in another city who you admire, or who you think is like impressive or doing the right things? An advocate as an individual, or perhaps an organization as a whole?
There's so many.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is going to count, but I'm going to say Zoran Mamdani.
I think that counts. He does a lot of stuff.
I think Zoran Mamdani is such a great example of how to do communications right. I think it's so mind-boggling and bizarre the way that he has made municipal politics sexy in America's biggest city. Little stupid nerdy things like I'm vetoing this bill that has particular protections over certain things relating to this base around places of worship or whatever. Like, that's crazy, but it gets millions of views. Just the level of charisma and the positive attitude and the focus on, here are the actions that we can do that have an impact on your day-to-day life, and meeting people where they're at. I think he's written the playbook for everybody else on the continent to follow when it comes to, here's how you make change in your city. Here's how you go from less than 1% in the poll to being the mayor of New York in less than a year.
Yeah. I think the comms is huge. The way we talk about these things is huge. And hopefully we see Unsprawling do a lot of that getting people interested in it. Our last municipal election, we had 38% voter turnout, which was not that wasn't low, right? That was a fine municipal election with a decent turnout, where almost every seat on city council was up for grabs, and so it's people are not that engaged in municipal issues, even though they impact them so regularly. And so I appreciate the work that people like you do with Unsprawling and with other advocacy organizations in my own city and people in other cities. So again, I'll make the call to people. If you are a city advocate and you'd like to be on the show, have a conversation, and share some of the things that you're doing in your city, the way that you're making your city better and maybe some of the ways that your city does it unique. I'd love to hear from you. Contacts in the show notes and in the description. Biz, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it, and thanks for kicking off the show.
Absolutely. I hope it goes really well for you.